all. And I'm gonna just share my screen and then we're gonna get going. It's good to see you all. Today we're gonna talk about we're gonna start talking about mapping value chains and kind of how to choose a market opportunity to work on, but also then like how you map trains and why you do it. So we're going to do our usual icebreaker. We're going to reflect on any demand research and market opportunities you guys have identified and learn about how and why to map a value chain. So, yeah, and I was trying to get set up so we could map one together, and I'll have to see if it works. I started like a Miro board, and I was thinking either this week or next week we would actually map one together. But first we're going to do our icebreaker. And we don't have to do all the introduction stuff. We know each other at this point, but I thought we could talk about vacation since it's summer. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And I have to say, my best vacations they're like all different depending who I'm traveling with. My family would like to take like road trips. So one that comes to mind is we took a road trip to Nova Scotia, which was just amazing. Like we drove to Maine and took the high-speed ferry and like went to Nova Scotia and like kind of traveled around Nova Scotia. And then we ended up taking, we drove the whole way back. We didn't take the ferry back. It's kind of expensive. So it was definitely like a one-time thing, I guess. We didn't want to take it both ways, but that was just amazing. And I totally like could see myself living there. It was like really amazingly beautiful and like really chill and yeah. Anyway, so that to me, that's one of my kind of one of my top vacations. So yeah, anyway, so we're gonna forgive me for having silly icebreakers. I think it just helps to start chatting, but I'm going to just call on people. Corinne, do you want to tell us about a good vacation you've been on?
Yes, I was really lucky in between like this job and a previous job. I had some time off, so I spent
Nice.
7 weeks in Europe and got to go like 10 different countries, and it
Wow.
was awesome. I wish I could do it
That's,
again.
oh, no kidding. I know. I wish I had taken advantage of like transition times like that. That is like, I keep telling my kids like to like take advantage of those times because then you don't have them.
Right?
But
Yeah.
that sounds
So
amazing.
I highly suggest if you have the chance to visit like Scandinavia, I loved it. The northern part of
Cool.
Europe, Finland was my
Yeah.
top one that I went to. It was beautiful.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. My husband's family is from Norway. Well, he actually still has family there, and they like historically have like built skis, which is so cool. But yeah, so I've been trying to get us to think about going there, but that is good to know. Finland would not have been even on my radar. So,
Yes, Norway's beautiful. I've been to Norway a couple times. That's where like my last name comes from.
okay.
And me and my mom got to visit. There's another region north of, like in the very northern part called Lofoten. It's like their
Oh,
national
yeah.
park region.
Huh.
If I could pack up everything and move and live there, I'd do it in a heartbeat. It's beautiful.
Wow.
So cold because you're in the Arctic Circle, but kind of worth it because you've got mountains and the ocean and fjords. It's awesome.
Awesome. Cool. All right, Brittany. Uh, or Lisa.
All right, so Corinne, I have to tell you, my niece-in-law is Finnish. She is from Finland.
Oh,
That's
Um,
cool.
so cool.
so I've done a lot of travels, but I have to say, I don't know if you call this a vacation or not, but when my husband retired from Phoenix PD, we took 2 years off
Ah,
and we traveled in an RV. We lived and traveled in an RV. We hit 24 states,
wow.
60 different RV parks. We went across the country and back. And so, I spent
Oh,
time in Nashville. We spent time in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. So I mean, that's probably my favorite, just because of the time we spent. We got to see we traveled to a lot of the Civil War
Mm-hmm.
battlefields and things like that. And so that was probably I don't know if you call it vacation, but it was
That's
living. But
okay. It
it was 2 years
counts.
of
Yeah.
living.
Trips. We're talking about travel.
Yeah,
Travel, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely counts for sure. That sounds amazing. Sawyer, how about you?
Sawyer Summers, still
Yeah,
in Birmingham, Regional Planning Commission. It said organization on there. I got to hit all the
I know,
marks.
I know.
Oh, also, this is a quick aside, but
Yeah,
if we want to map a value chain, what if we use Birmingham as a case study? That
I
would be
love
cool.
it. Yeah.
Well, so it was funny because we've been actually legitimately trying to collaborate more with regional partners like the Birmingham Business Alliance and like Rev and it's funny because, and this might be really embarrassing for Alabama, but I would like to hear y'all's take on it.
Yeah.
We've come to the realization that there's not actually a consistent message around what Birmingham is, what
Hmm.
our main industries are. Like everyone knows it was built on steel, but you ask like different economic developers, it's like, oh, well, what are we now? They're like, oh, well, finance. And it's like, well, we have the headquarters of regions and like maybe a couple other things. And they're like, and like logistics because we have all the rail lines, and
Hmm.
then kind of biotech because like the EDA designation, but there's really only like a few of those. And we we came to the embarrassing realization that we actually don't have a really good quantifiable idea of where we are right now. Like we can pull a
Hmm.
list of major employers, sure, that's fine. But like we do not have an identity. And so we're
Wow.
preparing to rewrite our seds and
Cool.
we're talking about value chains. Like we
Yeah.
have, because you got to look at your BBA's like our biggest issue is we don't have mega sites. Well, we can't manifest
Hmm.
mega sites, but sorry. But we do
No,
have
that's okay.
a lot of skilled workforce, but we don't have a
Mhm.
lot of all the engineers and everything go to Huntsville. And so it's like there's something to work with here. Like the answer isn't make mega sites exist. It's like work with what you
No,
got. Yeah.
absolutely.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so I'm very excited about this and it feels very
Cool.
relevant. But anyways,
Awesome.
not a big vacationer, not a big
Okay.
traveler, but I
Okay.
did also live in a camper for 2 years. And uh traveling up through the national parks of the West, like Zion,
Mm.
like
Yes.
Teton, like Yellowstone, kind of, but mostly actually just like the wildlands in between, like outside of
Yeah.
Teton, just in
Hmm.
Wyoming, life changing. And it was
Wow.
also work transition. I had left my first career job out of college. And so I don't know if you could call it a vacation. And also, to be frank, it was breathtaking, but I was kind of depressed at the time, but
Mm.
very important, formative time. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be a person that I'm like very proud of if I didn't have that time to like have an existential crisis in the mountains. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very cool.
So
Thanks for sharing. And yes, value
thanks for
chains
coming to
are
my TED
exciting.
talk. Yeah.
Oh. Value chains are fun and exciting and kind of like a nice way. I've actually been using this concept, and we'll talk about it more in like a lot of different areas, even outside of like kind of, I've even been thinking about it through downtown revitalization, through like a value chain lens. And I think there's a lot of ways you can use it. So, yes, I appreciate your excitement. Ethan,
Hi everyone. Vacations.
or trips,
My
travel,
road
whatever.
trip travel.
Yeah,
My
anything.
spouse and I, like before Labor Day weekend, we are going to South Haven, Michigan, right along Lake
Mm.
Michigan. Really
Cool.
beautiful part of Michigan, and yeah, celebrate our 5-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, that sounds fun. Excellent. Gotta love lakes. I mean, we're on Lake Champlain all the time, so I hear you. Not quite a Great Lake, but it's pretty big. Um, Heather.
Do you ever see Champ?
I have not personally seen Champ, though, I'm sure definitely people say they have. So,
I'm sure he exists. I
yeah.
used to live on along Lake Champlain when I was
Oh,
super
okay.
super young. Yeah. No,
Cool.
but so probably gosh, this was either 2014, maybe 2015. Andrew and I went on uh I, it was a surprise trip for him. He had no idea where he was going.
Yeah.
So we started in Herkimer, across New York State, the western part, into Pennsylvania, down into West Virginia, where I had to stop at Fiestaware and pick up stuff. Then we crossed Ohio and stayed into Ohio and into Kentucky to go do a little bit of a bourbon trail.
Oh.
From Kentucky, we went down into Tennessee and then down into Graceland. That was the ultimate trip.
Yeah.
So we hung out with Elvis a little bit, dipped into Louisiana because it's right on the border. And
Yeah.
then when we came home, we shot up the side. So we went through Missouri and, that way, and cut across into Indianapolis
Wow.
and then cut back into New York, stayed overnight in Buffalo, and then came home. So
wow.
yeah. And I had a friend that was enthralled with the trip and the planning. And I said, do you want me to send you postcards? And she's like, yeah. So I sent her a postcard in every single stop that we made. And when we got back, her husband goes, I noticed Angie's name was the only name on these postcards. I'm like, yes, they were.
How funny. That sounds so fun. Yeah, we haven't done road trips as long as that, but yes. The last Wealth Creation Summit, not the one we just had, was in South Carolina, and I convinced my family to drive down, pick me up, and we did a road trip back up to Vermont, it was lovely. It was really fun, actually. But yeah, they drove from Vermont to South Carolina, and I think they did it in a day because there were 3 drivers, but I know they got in at like 12:30 and they were wired, and I took them walking around Greenville at like 1 a.m. But yeah, it was crazy, but it was fun road trips. Lindsay.
You all have a lot more excitement than I do. I like a staycation sometimes. That's some of my favorite, that you can get stuff done at home. But
Yeah.
recently, a couple years ago, we went to Pensacola, and we'd never been there before. Flew in from Nashville, just easy flight. The kids
Yeah.
loved it. You're on a golf cart the whole time. So we said next year that's where we'll be going back.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
we're beach people when we go, so.
I hear you. Beaches are cool. I'm not good at sitting on the beach. I need to walk or do something. I'm not great at just hanging on the beach, but
I like to
I do
people
love the
watch.
beach. Or I like finding rocks and shells and stuff, but yeah, people watching is very good at the beach. Thank you. And Brittany, we'll come back to you.
So sorry, I was
That's
on
okay.
call there.
All good.
Just recapping, is this a summer vacation we've
Yeah, we're
enjoyed?
just talking about our favorite vacation or travel trips or whatever.
Gosh. I love doing some backpacking. Done that in Glacier,
Nice.
Glacier National Park, near me. Actually, to be honest, I'm very excited to go to Vermont. I'm going on Sunday. So yeah,
How exciting.
I've never been there. So
Oh, where are you going to be?
yeah, I'll be in Burlington for 5 nights. But I'm hoping to do the whole Stowe,
Yes.
covered bridge.
Yeah.
I had grandiose plans. I'm I'm so close to everything, and living in Montana, I'm I drive everywhere, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I really don't want to be in the car the whole time. But
Yeah.
so I'll tootle around. I want to rent a bike and go over to, is it you can take a ferry to the Champlain
yes.
Islands? Is that a thing?
You should do that. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, you go on the Burlington bike path, and it goes up on this causeway. It's amazing. You're biking in the middle of the lake, and there's water on both sides. And then there's a bike ferry that takes you this super short distance. It's kind of ridiculous how short it is, but it's where the big boats come in. Yeah, we do that bike ride a lot. It is really, really
cool.
nice.
That's what I want to do. So that's on
and
my
then go
list
up into
when
the
I'm there.
islands and go get a maple creamy, which is what they call soft serve ice cream in Vermont. But yes.
Very nice. We're also the recipient of Community Heart and Soul Getting Started series, and they're based in Burlington.
They are.
So
I know people there.
I have yeah, I have a meetup planned with them. So yeah,
Nice.
looking
Well,
forward
if you
to it.
see
Yeah,
Sarah, Sarah Leitner is
that's who I'm
my,
planning to meet.
how funny. She's my
Yeah.
daughter's best friend's mom. So yeah,
Oh,
small
funny.
world. But
Yeah. So
yes. Very cool. Well, lots of, yeah. Well, I hope you have an amazing time in Vermont. It is a really nice time of year to be here. It's like, and it's been kind of cool, which is kind of nice. And or at least cool for summer. But yeah, how exciting. Oh, I love it. All right, back to here. So again, principles, I just like reminding us what we're talking about broadly is creating wealth, rooting it in places, rooting it locally through local ownership, control, and influence, and building livelihoods. And these are our capitals. Again, I know we keep talking about them, but it's just these are kind of the key pieces of this approach. And we're in the later stage of this continuum. So we're going to be talking about mapping. We're going to actually start a little bit before mapping of like, how do you even choose a market opportunity, right? So we talked about being demand driven, and I wanted to see if anybody had, I know it's hard to, I think the homework was to like, I identify a couple of demand partners for your value chain and like actually have a conversation. And I know that that's kind of a big step to have that conversation. So we can talk more about that, but if you haven't, that's totally okay. But it is like kind of the first step. And I wanted, before we get into the mapping part, I want to talk about like, how do you even choose what to work on, right? You might have lots of different ideas of value chain of market opportunities that might be interesting. In the Afghanistan work that I think I was talking about last time with Shauna, we uncovered like 100 market opportunities. And in the end, we wanted to give them a sense of, there's 100 here, but what are the ones that are most relevant to start with, right? Where do you start? And so we created kind of very specific criteria for them because they have some interesting circumstances. But the point is there are a lot of different ways to do it. But I think criteria are really helpful. So just to remind us, a sector is the grouping of businesses in the economy that shares related products and services. But we want to drill down to not only a subsector, but an actual market opportunity. And so these are some examples that are real. So like rather than thinking about tourism, which is kind of is big, right? You need to make it smaller. Now, we had a value chain that was all about rural bike tourism. Or, if you think about grains, malting barley for beer. And we want to drill down into something fairly discrete. We had an organization that was talking about biofuels. They talked about a lot of different things, and they ended up focusing their efforts on camelina. And then, yeah, so these are just some examples of like the level of like specificity we want to get to. And there are a lot of different ways to select a market opportunity. These are just a few different ways of thinking about it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each. But one is just defining the target groups and goals you want to achieve. Like, are there groups in your community or your region that you want to benefit? Right. So that's one way of thinking about it. And what is your goal in developing a value chain? And then comparing market opportunities through criteria. I'm going to show you that in a second. Preliminary demand research is always helpful. We already talked about this, but this is another way of kind of getting closer to an actual market opportunity. And then there's like, can you bring together stakeholders to kind of create a decision-making process about what makes sense? So this is a cool, and I think this is on our website under tools, but this is one way to compare multiple market opportunities, right? Is thinking about these criteria. And you can create your own criteria. This is pretty broadly wealth creation based. So here, number of people from the target group. Like if you're thinking about groups that you want to impact, will that target group be active in the value chain? Could there be folks in that target group that could own businesses, the market demand, the jobs or businesses that can be created, increasing ownership and control over assets, building multiple forms of wealth? I mean, that's kind of integral to value chains. And then just feasibility, like, is it something we can make happen? So this is a nice spreadsheet that you can use to compare different market opportunities. Again, high, medium, and low, you have to figure out what that, that's going to be very focused in what you think, or the people that you're working with, what they think. The preliminary demand research, this is really, you should probably be doing this anyway. I've done preliminary demand reports for different groups that are interested in value chains. And what it means is, talking with businesses like, or institutions, or kind of anchor institutions in your region, understanding what their needs are. What are other sources of demand? Replacing imports. Are there ways to produce something that you're importing locally? Can you add value to something that's already made in your region? Yeah, so this is really just about talking. And this is kind of what we were talking about with, these demand partner interviews, is really what this helps with. Like, you can understand where the energy is. And then the stakeholder decision-making process. Like, I think this is another really nice way to do it, is to bring people together and talk about these different kind of, again, criteria. Is it building on regional assets? What's the competition like? Is it too much, or is there enough space in that market opportunity to make something happen? Is it scalable? Is it attainable? And is there energy? Like, sometimes it just comes down to, like, are people excited about it, right? Like, sometimes that's what you need to move something forward. So these are just some different ways of thinking about how to choose. And sometimes you're not choosing. Sometimes you're already doing it, right? You already have a great idea. You don't have to worry about it. But I've definitely worked with communities that were like, oh, we want to do, energy, or we want to do food, or we want to do, they have a lot of different ideas. And how do you figure out where to start, right? You can't do them all at the same time. I mean, you could map them at the same time, but to actually, the mapping is just visualizing. There's actual work to be done once you map it. So anyway, the value chains. This is our definition, kind of the WealthWorks definition is that they connect local production to regional demand. The idea is to connect rural communities to urban demand, is where this all came from. It doesn't have to be urban demand, it could be rural demand. But it's a network of people, businesses, institutions, and nonprofits collaborating to meet market demand for something, and each advancing their own interest while creating greater local wealth. And so there's a lot of pieces to this. You can see it's a network, so hence the mapping, and the individual self-interest gets to value propositions, which I know we've talked about, but we're going to be talking about more. It's all about building relationships. This whole process is about building relationships. And these are just some of the kinds of organizations and players that you build relationships with. And they're all part of that chain. So, yes, these are the key partners in a value chain. So demand, that's why we started with demand. Demand is kind of where it all starts. You can't really build a value chain without understanding what those end market buyers actually want. Then there's the functions are kind of throughout the chain, but they're transactional partners are those people, businesses, or organizations that are playing a direct role in, they touch that product or service. So whether they're sourcing, aggregating, distributing, processing, they have their hands on that product or service. The support partners, typically EDDs would fall into the support partner role, are actually supporting those transactional partners, whether it's providing infrastructure, technical assistance, support with finding funding, convening, all of those things that EDDs do really well. There are other support partners, but you can see, and this is our typical, this is a tomato soup value chain. Now they all look different, and I'm going to show you some real examples too, but this helps explain the finer points of it. So you can see the demand partners are over here in blue, and we've got the hospital, school district, and area consumers. Now, when we're talking about demand partners, if you remember, we're talking about like aggregators of demand, right? We're not talking about each individual consumer because there's no way we can figure out what every single consumer wants. So to get at those consumers, we would talk to probably stores. We would talk to the school district, to the hospital, to senior facilities, any place that has a lot of people. The green are our transactional partners. So you can see it goes from the vegetable grower to the aggregator to the soup processor and then to the distributor who brings it to the demand side. Now this is super simplified. I mean, there would be other folks in here, like even before the vegetable grower, we'd have like an input supplier. They have to get their input somewhere. And there's little, there's probably a packager. I mean, this is overly simple. Then the yellow are the support partners. So they're having an impact on those transactional partners. So there's an organization for the farmers, there's the certifier, a trainer, someone that's talking about nutrition for kids. And then there's a coordinator who's overseeing the whole thing. And we'll talk more about that coordinator. The coordinator just kind of keeps this all working. So EDDs could be coordinators. Sometimes a coordinator is one of these transactional partners. Like let's say the processor or the distributor is like, wants to make sure that this is going to work. So they play a coordination role. So I've seen it both ways. I've seen it where the coordinator can be an outside organization that's keeping an eye on everything, or it could be one of these green boxes could also be playing a coordination role. I'm going to show you some real examples, but any questions at this point that I can answer? I know this is pretty simplified, but you'll see some real ones that I think help. And there's no I guess there's no format that you can make it look however you want. This is just the way that we did it. Food happens to be a pretty linear chain, and you'll see some other chains are a little bit more kind of network chains where there's not like a beginning and an end. So you'll see here's another food value chain. This is from Oregon. So you can see here, the blue here on the left are the demand partners, and the gray are the support partners. So which makes sense, right? Investors, extension, marketing. And then the black and the blue are our transactional partners. So you can see, and they've put lines. I can't remember what the lines mean, but everybody uses the lines differently. And my guess is the blue and the black I don't know the exact meaning. My guess is some of this is probably like what we're dreaming of, and some actually exists. This is a recreation value chain. This is a trails value chain. And what they've done is they've put their demand partners on the right side. They've got the supporting functions and then the transactional functions. I love this. They have this underutilized assets piece. For all of these, but for this one in particular, I remember that this is kind of like the front of it, right? The back end is like a spreadsheet or a database that has all of these players in it. So some people put it all out there right on the map, and some people have a back end that is kind of lists all these folks and who they are and what their value propositions are. This is another outdoor recreation one that I got to work on in Western New York. And this is one where there's real value. So like there's a lot of different ways to map value chains. There's real value in doing this in person. Like I helped facilitate this value chain map, and we had like 80 people in a room. And it was pretty amazing because everybody could say where they fit, like what their role was, right? And that was really powerful. And it made this sense of belonging, which is pretty amazing, and of ownership. So this one you can see has supplies, assets on the left, kind of what they have to work with. They've got demand partners on the right. They did an amazing demand study. So they actually had data about all these folks. And then they had the transactional partners and the support partners. And then what we did in person was not only map it and show where everybody fit, but we collectively identified the gaps, which are the ones that are outlined in black. And there's a lot of gaps. So, you can only do so much. So we decided to prioritize which ones we could start with. And that's where those red dots came in. And we actually developed working groups that would work on each of these gaps. And people self-selected those, the ones that they actually cared about. And it was pretty amazing. And we had, I want to say quarterly calls with each of these working groups just to see how things were going, coaching. And anyway, so this is one I like because of that. I think just like figuring out where the gaps are and the priorities. And then this is another one I got to work on. This is in New Hampshire recreation. There's a little bit different, but you can see the demand partners in blue. They've got their support partners in orange, and then they have their kind of transactional partners in green. And they segment it based on different pieces that were important to that value chain. And this is a structure I also want to share with you. This is Rural Development Initiatives in the Pacific Northwest came up with this, which I think is also pretty interesting. I mean, again, I just want to show you different ways of thinking about this, but they go from supply to demand, which is kind of the basics. And then they have the supporting functions here. One thing they do that I kind of love is this rules and regulations, like what rules and regulations are actually relevant to this value chain, and is there something that needs to be done on the policy side? And then the coordinator, you can see this in reality. This is again, Oregon. This was about increasing incomes for fishing businesses. So you can see fishing, the fishermen, I guess, or angle, I don't know which works. And then the customer, you can see the demand side here, supermarkets, institutions, restaurants. And you can see the core value chain. We've got the small fishing businesses, wholesalers, processors, farmers markets, and then the supporting tasks, like what has to be in place for these fishermen to be successful. And then kind of this rules and regulations piece, like what kinds of things impact this chain. So it's just another way of thinking about it. I kind of like it. It's a little complicated, but it's, everybody, I feel like everybody works differently, and like it's whatever is going to work for you. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to look a particular way. And then I wanted to share a network map. Tourism and recreation are not linear, right? Tourists and recreationists come in and they engage in a lot of different things. So that's why I love kind of this network map idea. You can see the demand is up here in the dark green. The transactional partners are in the blue, all the different folks that connect with those folks. Then there's the light green are like the support partners. And then here it also has kind of like the rules and regulations thing, like what kinds of rules and regulations are relevant to a tourism economy. So And this is actually, as I've been thinking about the use of value chains for downtown revitalization, I think it kind of looks like this, right? We think about downtowns, and again, there are demand partners. They could be, generally they're consumers, but they could be, tourists. They can be businesses, and then there are all kinds of things they're looking for, right, to engage. So, yeah, this is something that's been on my mind because I'm doing a downtown project. Is can we create a value chain around downtown? And I think so, but I haven't done it, but I'm gonna do it. So, how do you do this? So one is to identify and start to engage those market players. Refine your goals. Like, can you drill down deeper, right? Like, is there something fairly specific? Then map the chain, identify and research the challenges and opportunities, otherwise known as gaps and barriers, and and then figure out how to fill those gaps, and then revise and revisit. It's kind of an ongoing process. A value chain is not like a static thing. It's constantly moving. So, and it should. You map one and it's sort of like a baseline, and the idea is to fill some of those gaps so that the next time you map it, it's more complete. And just like everything else, identifying and engaging market players is just talking to people. All of this is about talking to people, talking to local businesses, talking to stakeholders, understanding everybody's challenges, doing a little bit of snowball sampling. Who else should you talk to? And yeah, refining goals. I think, it's kind of that drilling down part, right? And I suggest using wealth creation principles. But for instance, that New Hampshire recreation one I showed you, the end goal wasn't the number of tourists. They didn't want to increase tourism. People actually coming to be tourists, because then your resource can get overrun. What they were trying to do was increase the amount of money that the existing tourists were spending. So that's pretty different. And it means that you don't have to increase your capacity, you just have to increase the number of things people are spending money on, right? Or make those things, make there be more things they can spend money on. For Oregon, for that fishing example, it was really about increasing incomes for those small fishing businesses. It was really about livelihoods. So understanding what your ultimate goal is really important to value chain mapping. Because again, in New Hampshire, if it was focused on the number of tourists, it might look different, right? But because it was about the amount of money they were spending, that's how it ended up. That's where their strategies went. Back to value chains. This is all about value chains. I mean, all those partners and all those boxes, the key is understanding what's in it for them. Because if you want to engage them, you have to figure out why they should care and why they want to play with you, why they want to play along with the value chain. So, we want to, when we do these conversations with whether they're demand partners or transactional partners or whoever, it's trying to figure out what their challenges and barriers are and how engaging in this value chain can be supportive to them. So what's in it for them? It's also what's in it for us. There are shared levels of interest and also common interest. What's in it for our region? Like, why should we all care about this? And so the idea is really building relationships. It's talking to people, using language you've never used before, maybe using their language. That's kind of why I mentioned researching those demand partners, because you want to understand their world a little bit better before you reach out to them and see if you can use the language that they are used to using. The other thing is identifying people who not only value like the market opportunity that you're talking about, but also any other benefits that come out of it. Like if there are community benefits, do they value that? You're looking also for investors. I didn't mention that, but investors are part of this equation too. And actually, any of those boxes could be investors if they care enough and the value proposition makes sense. So this is another tool that is on the website about, and this is really based on, I've mentioned it in the SEDS committee, but I think it still holds for value chains is understanding, why would they be interested in participating and how would you engage them? What's the language or what's the value proposition that's going to make them want to engage? And so that's something else. And why do we even do this value chain mapping? I mean, the idea is to have a successful market opportunity that actually goes somewhere. And without understanding the value chain and kind of how it should work, there isn't a way to make it work. This is a pretty, I love the visual of this, and I think it helps understand what's actually going on the ground. But ultimately, we want to find those gaps and fill them and figure out how to make this opportunity move from supply to demand and keep doing it and ultimately institutionalize that chain. There's lots of gaps. You saw that one in New York that I did. That recreation one had a lot of gaps and how we prioritize them. These are some ways you could think about prioritizing them. So which gaps are going to have the most impact? Which will have the greatest ripple, the transformative through the train, which ones are actually feasible to address, and where's the energy and the excitement? I know it sounds silly, but honestly, if you can't get people excited, it's going to be hard to make progress. So some things are more interesting than other things, and that's part of it. So yes, ultimately, we're trying to create economic opportunity, and that particular market opportunity and mapping it out and filling gaps is a way to facilitate that market opportunity in reality. The coordinator, I kind of brushed over this, but it's really important. Value chains typically do not self-organize. So I would say an organization, probably not a person, but some organization or business or institution has to kind of be the keeper of the value chain. So these are some of the things they might do. They hold and steward the vision. So making sure we're still remaining true to what we originally thought we were doing. They're building relationships not only between themselves and each of the partners, but among and between the actual partners too. And making sure that they're getting what they need, understanding all the value propositions and what people need to make this work. So that's it's a hefty task. Making sure we're building multiple forms of wealth and guiding the activities and partnerships that actually make that happen. Trying to ensure that low-income people, firms, and places participate and benefit. Managing risk is a big one, and then maintaining information flows. So these are just some of them. Ultimately, they're just trying to make sure that this all works. And it's not an easy task. I'm trying to think of examples I can give you. Generally, the value chains that I've seen in reality, there's some nonprofit, I want to say, that is playing this role. Or Or I have seen where one of the actual transactional partners, like a business, is doing that also, that where it's in their best interest to make sure this all works. So it can work either way. There is an EDD in Minnesota that has developed a number of value chains. That's Region 5 in Minnesota. Cheryl went to a training of mine a very long time ago, and she has just taken it and run with it. So she has, food value chains. I think she has an energy value chain, and she's great. I should really get her to come talk to you guys because she's amazing. But yes, I think EDDs can play a coordination role, but they can also just play a supporting role and just do the things they're used to doing. So again, this is just a little bit of a recap, but the idea, start with market demand, which is why we talked last time about demand and demand partners. Choose market opportunities with the greatest wealth building potential. Connect to real market demand. So Cheryl in Minnesota started by serving local demand. She had a food value chain, and she really wanted to make sure that her region had access to regionally produced food. And so that's where she started. And then when she got to that point, she could move farther out and find regional customers and demand partners to bring it to scale. Map the process and the partners, and identify the gaps. And again, those gaps can be filled in a lot of different ways. I think one way is new entrepreneurs or people that are willing to take on a different role. There's a great story I love. Utah. I think it was Green River. A colleague of mine was doing some work in Green River, and one of the gaps was lodging. And because they mapped out the value chain with partners, I think there was an outfitter or somebody who saw that lodging was a challenge and a gap and decided to add lodging to their offerings because they saw there was demand, they saw there was a gap, and were able to take on that, at least be a provider of lodging. I mean, I don't think they could take care of all the lodging, but they were able to kind of shift what they were doing to add lodging to their offerings. So anyway, I love that story. It's a good one. And then these are just some more examples, but the goal ultimately is, again, building rooted wealth, community prosperity, and livelihoods. So filling a gap, just an example, this was from Arkansas, creating a waste oil recycling business. That was I think the camelina one, they didn't have enough camelina, so they wanted to create other ways of supporting that value chain, and they started a waste oil recycling business. Removing a barrier, often gap certification is a barrier that's in a food value chain. Building multiple capitals that are rooted in place. There's a great example I think this was in Kentucky, about creating more energy efficient housing. And to do that, there was definitely a capacity need. So they were able to create this program at the community college, and then finding ways to include residents who are on the economic and social margins. Like this example is providing entrepreneurial training to self-employed low-income contractors. So a lot of times I feel like there are gaps around skills, like in this example with entrepreneurial training, or this green building. Skills development is often a gap. I think sometimes a gap can be something like this gap certification. It could be something that's just people can't afford to get that kind of certification. And how do you make that happen? The gaps can be all over the place, as you saw with that one value chain where we mapped them out. But yeah, I just chattered on for a while. Are there questions? And we can see if this, I want, so your homework is to actually, compare the market opportunities you're considering, or if you'll just have one, then, and actually map it. Often I use PowerPoint to map it because PowerPoint has like lots of shapes and things, but I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and see if I can get this other thing going. But in the meantime, do you guys have any questions that we can talk through? Let me see if I can make this work. I made a board. Copy team invite. Let's see if we can make this work. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Oh, this is a really long ink. Let's see if this works. But yes, I'm happy to, we could map one out right now, or if you have questions about anything that you're thinking about mapping or some market opportunity you want to talk through. I need to stop talking for a minute, but yeah, questions, conversation, anything on your minds. I think this is just me. Yeah, it might not work. I don't know if you can get to that, but it used to be we could use Jamboard. Jamboard used to be amazing, and I could give a link and we could all work on mapping something, but it doesn't exist anymore, so I have to find new things. But oops, that's not what I want. Yeah, I don't know. Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is gonna work. But I mean, the other thing is, oh, somebody's on. Anyway, I was thinking, I know, I can't figure out how to make oh, no, that didn't work. Let's see. Frame, prototype, doc, slides. Okay, you guys are in here. So, ooh, sticky note. See, that's what I want. So, okay, sticky notes. So, Sawyer, you mentioned Birmingham. So, oh, and you have to jump off.
No, it's so tragic.
Oh, well, you know what? We'll do this next time too. I mean, we have another
Okay.
call next week where we can kind of dig a little deeper. I mean, I think the thing about value chain mapping is like I can present all the ideas and the examples in the world, but you just have to try it. And the cool thing is there is a structure, right? There's demand, there's the transactional chain, like what actually goes from supply to demand. And it doesn't have to be a product, it could be a service. And then who else needs to be engaged? And you all are great at thinking about partners and stakeholders, and that is such a key piece of this. So yeah, now and you're in. So I'm super excited. So we can figure out how to do this next time. But I think, I would just say, probably the easiest way is just to create these boxes, these like sticky note boxes, and, map it out. And we can change the color of these, I think. I'll have to experiment a little bit more with this, but I think that you can do all of these things. I don't know how, but anyway, we're gonna figure it out. But like, so here, let's make this blue. Can you guys see what I'm doing? Oh, I could actually make this part of our, let's see, can I share this? Amazing. So Yeah, so anyway, we can make this blue. This is demand. So I know Sawyer, you have to get off, but and then we would figure out who the demand partners are, right? So you have to get off in 2 minutes. Any, is there a particular sector in Birmingham you're thinking about, Sawyer?
Well, so in trying to decide the sector, it was like I think the most interesting sector would be advanced metal manufacturing.
Yeah. Metal manufacturing. Okay. Okay. So that's a big one. Okay. So we'll make this less crazy at some point. But and so like who would the demand partners be?
Well, I think the main demand partners would be we have a lot of pipe, so certainly utilities.
Okay.
But we also in Alabama have a ton of vehicle, so auto industry. We have a lot of defense,
Defense.
and I
Yeah.
mean, and like aerospace generally, whether it be rockets or Airbus or
Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Now let me see if I can figure out how to put something else on. Why is this so hard?
And
Text.
I do have to jump off, but I really look
Okay.
forward to getting back into this.
Yeah, we will. We will. No, it's good to see you, Sawyer. And we are going to meet next week. I know it's just a week, but we can kind of have a continuation of this and just play around a little bit. I think doing it together will be really helpful. So we'll do a little bit more today, but we'll finish this one with you next week.
Look
So
forward to seeing y'all soon.
yeah, good to see you. Okay, anybody else? Let's start on something else. Or does anybody have questions or anything they want to talk through? Any demand market opportunity we should play along with now that Sawyer is gone? Let's see.
I was gonna mention like Central Iowa and food
Yeah.
systems.
Food systems. Cool. All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk to me about food systems. We'll do that down here.
Yeah, so I guess when people think about Iowa, it's like, oh, corn and soybeans, and that's kind of all we grow because
Yeah.
we have great soil, but also we import 99.8% of what we eat.
Yeah.
We export everything else. Like we have some of the
Mhm.
best soil, but we don't actually grow foods that we eat. But we're
Yes.
starting to see a shift
Okay.
and the demand for locally grown food, for locally grown, from fruits to vegetables to nuts to meat and cheese. So there's definitely a demand across, I think, all sectors, whether it's just household or uh, like uh, schools. So like I'm thinking like at a municipality level, it's like the schools and hospitals have the demand for locally grown food.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So schools, hospitals, anybody else? I mean, locally grown, that's everybody, right?
Right.
Are there like retirement communities in your region?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Retirement
Iowa's an
communities,
aging population.
colleges, universities.
Yeah, in our region it'd be Iowa State University.
Okay. Iowa State. You. Cool. And then probably grocery
Grocery, yeah.
stores, right? Like
So we do have we were just talking about this,
Restaurants.
restaurants too.
restaurants, good.
We do have like a local chain called
Okay.
Fairway. Fairway is a local chain, and it's like Fare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not like yeah, right. So Fairway.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay.
and so we were talking, it's a small layout of a store, and we were talking about how in the future it'd be nice to see how like when you first walk into the store, it
Yeah.
should be the first things that you see should be stuff that's grown and produced locally, and then the rest of the store is everything else. So it's like the
Okay.
first thing that you see should be
Yes,
everything grown here.
absolutely.
So that way, you know that you're supporting local. But in the grocery industry, people usually
Hmm.
buy a place on the shelf, like,
Yes, right.
and then the manufacturers are buying a spot. So it would take basically state legislation to change something like this to then
Oh,
allow for this to be the which I feel like right now would be a good time to introduce something
oops.
like this.
Oh, I lost you. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so like, so there's a legislation, there's a policy piece.
Yeah.
Policy, so the policy is about um placement,
Yeah, yeah.
placement in stores. Is that a policy thing? But
It might
yeah,
I feel like it almost would have to be at this point.
So
yeah.
I think what the policy piece could be, and it's very similar to what New York State does. New York State does something called New York State Grown and Certified, which
Oh,
you apply. There's requirements obviously, but you can apply to become New York State Grown and Certified, so that when you are out in the public, you have a sticker that says you're New York
yes.
Grown and Certified. That
Nice.
you're at least 51% of your product is grown and manufactured in New York State, or 100%. But
Yeah.
there's other requirements, and they have it across the board for like vegetables,
Yeah.
animals, eggs,
Nice.
flowers, pine trees,
Huh.
maple syrup, like all these different
Yeah.
products. But that kind of sounds like what you're thinking
Yeah.
of, Ethan.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
almost like a marketing branding placement. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that. Okay, cool.
definitely.
That's great. So that sounds like a gap is this policy piece.
Yeah. And the other
But
thing too we thought
yeah, go
about
ahead.
is like restaurants, like what if they could um if they're buying from something like this where it's like the marketed Iowa State grown and certified, then what if they get some sort of like tax break?
Oh,
Because running a restaurant it's the margins are small, but if they're able to get some sort of tax break from sales tax by proving that they purchased locally grown and locally sourced goods, then maybe they
nice.
get some sort of tax break.
I,
For restaurants. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I think another gap might be the supply chain, the local supply chain. If
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're growing stuff locally, how do those smaller farmers or smaller agricultural producers, how do they get their products where you're thinking of
absolutely.
it?
Oh yeah.
right.
So like, probably here we have farmers, right? Uh, I mean, actually, I always think we need to start with input suppliers because where the farmers get what they need, right?
Yeah,
And do those so, and then there's some sort of, I mean, again, for something like this, I'd want to start, I'd want to narrow in a little bit because food is like a really big one, right? So like
yeah,
sometimes we have to start, I mean, sometimes starting with a particular product or area of products is a great way just to like get the ball rolling so that you can do a more broad kind of thing. So is there like
right.
something on your mind, Ethan, that's like we could focus our thinking on just today?
Yeah. Um,
Is it like produce? Is it meat? Is it dairy? Um,
man,
I
you're
know.
right. It's all the things, isn't it?
It is, I know, and that's why it's hard to map everything in one value chain, I guess is my point, because they all work differently, right?
Right.
Um, but let's say produce for today, just
Yeah,
let to
let's start
play
with
around a
produce,
little bit,
definitely.
right? So there's
Yep.
some sort of there's an aggregator probably of all the produce, like farmers. I mean, so one thing is farmers can sell direct to consumers, right? So there's some sort of in that case you don't really need an aggregator. Let's say they sell through farmers markets or
Right.
community supported agriculture. So this would be a really short chain. This would be like And I'm sorry, I'm the only one who can play in here. I'm not, I thought, I'll have to get a subscription to this so we can all play. Because my idea was you could all come in here and like make boxes too. But next week I will have it ready. So next week you can all, we'll have a little bit of chaos, but yeah, this is kind of a short chain because then this goes, there's a line that goes from here to here. And then there's a line that goes from here to here, right? So that's short, right? But then the rest of them, like the retirement communities, like you definitely need an aggregator, and then you need probably like in the tomato soup value chain, there's probably there might be some processing. There's some like maybe there's a fresh cut. Maybe there's some processing and let's just say processing, and then there's some distribution, right? There's trucking and sometimes the processing and the aggregator are the same, sometimes the distributor and the processing, these you'd have to see. Yeah, you'd have to see what's going on in your area to know how that works, because this works differently everywhere. And then there's like, we'll say wholesalers. Actually, the wholesalers probably go. I do a lot of work in agriculture, so we'll say this goes here. And then, so those are our transactional partners, right? And there's, again, this is super simplified. We'd want to actually understand who's in these boxes, right? What companies or organizations play in these boxes. And then, if you have processing, actually, then you might have what we would call like almost a chainlet. Like suppose you were growing tomatoes. And I know we were talking about tomatoes already, but if you were growing tomatoes and you wanted to make like tomato sauce, you would need other farmers that are growing other things, right? Not just tomatoes. So these are, let's say these are tomato farmers and these are, herb farmers. I don't know. And then the processing would happen. So like the lines would go from here to here, and then here to here, and then here back to here, maybe. So there's levels, right? Like we've already created like 3 different chainlets, right? We've got this super simple direct to consumer chainlet. We've got this like value added chain. And then this is like the straight tomato chain. You know what I mean? So anyway, this is just, yeah, I'm kind of doing this kind of fast, but you can see where we're going. And then, we didn't even talk about the support partners. Let's do that for a second, just because I think it's really important. So down here, our support partners. Now, do you think, do any of these kinds of partners, they must exist, Ethan, in your region? I mean, extension maybe, or
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we have so Iowa State University, which is in our region. They are responsible for the Iowa State Extension and Outreach. And
cool.
they do outreach in all 99 counties.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's cool. Okay, cool. All
And so
right.
they're definitely heavily involved in like
Nice.
local food
Mm-hmm.
and production, business modeling. There's
Nice.
like a whole sector that's also devoted to like grocer and so yeah, that's yeah,
That's
it's
a
definitely a
big one.
strength. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then the EDD, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yep. So us.
um, yeah.
Yep.
Again, doing what you do best, which is, probably convening and bringing people together and finding money and things
Yep.
like that.
And then the other big one is the Iowa Food Systems Coalition.
Cool. Great.
So it's a coalition of a bunch of organizations that are involved in local food production. It's a statewide initiative.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. Um, Anybody else come to mind? I'm trying to think. Um, hmm. I think this is also where, like, technical assist. I mean, well, technical assistance would probably come from Extension and your Food
Yep.
Systems Coalition. You would provide kind of facilitation, convening kinds of maybe and looking for funding. Maybe the state Iowa Department of Agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
like, USDA. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah. So again, this is very basic, but we would, it's basic, but it provides a framework for us to start saying, okay, who exists in these like here, you notice with these yellow ones, we've actually put real organizations in, right?
Right.
Whereas the green, we're not, I mean, right now, I don't know. And I'm not sure if you know, but
Mhm.
that would be a fact-finding mission, right?
Right.
Who actually exists in our region that can fulfill these functions?
Yeah.
And if there's nobody there, then that's one of our gaps, right? So,
Right.
which is cool because then, seeing it visually, I'm a visual person. It helps for me to see things visually. I think a lot of people are too. And I think it makes it easier, again, like I said, to engage people if they can see what you're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and to see, again, we just started on this and we can build it out and figure out again where the gaps are. It makes a compelling case if they can see how it's supposed to work,
Yeah.
So anyway, is this helpful to anybody? I'm just,
It
I was
is.
I didn't do this in the last cohort, and it was something they mentioned that it would be fun to do. And I think it does help to think, in your regions, like how do we start to think about this? And so, yeah, and we'll do Sawyer's next week. But I think even, we have about 15 minutes left. But we can do this, there's not too many of you. I mean, I'd love for you guys to try it on your own, but we can also um, play with this, the rest of today's session and next week's session too, and we can build some out for you all with different ideas. But anything else? I mean, again, I think Ethan, it might help for you to. This is a starting point, right? This is not the
Right.
end. This
Yeah.
is just us like spitballing. But ooh, Lindsay's got something going on. I
I
have
didn't
to
mean to do that.
Oh no, it's totally fine. I have to figure out how better to use this too. But yeah, Brittany, what's on your mind?
Yeah, so ideally, would this work should all be kind of done and ready. I mean, and as an EDO, we should be the coordinators if through our SEDS process, like
Could
for
be.
our roundtable industry discussions. I mean, ideally, we would kind of do all this so we know who to have at the table.
Yeah, I think it's a really good exercise even before you bring people. Like I mentioned that New
Yeah,
York example where we brought everybody together, but we actually started doing it before that. You're right. We did start to like process it a little on our own because you can't, it's hard to come to a group like that with a blank slate, right?
yeah.
You want to show them that you've put some thought into it. And so
Hmm.
part of it is, you know, doing something even as simple as this is a great starting point because then when you bring people together, that's when they can be like, oh, I fit in this box. This is the function
Hmm.
that I provide, or I provide three of these functions.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think so. And EDDs can be coordinators. They don't have to be. I mean, it can be a big lift, but it's
Yeah, I
definitely
was wondering, like,
as, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just thinking it would make sense for us to be the coordinators. I mean, obviously there are other people that can take the lead, but as
Yeah.
far as the work we're trying to do, especially with the SEDS process. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a great opportunity for partnership too. Maybe
Mhm.
it's a joint effort. Maybe it's a key partnership that you engage in something like this with another organization. Like in this example, maybe you're partnering with Extension or the Food Systems Coalition to build this out. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice framework. It's visual. Again, it can look like anything. I've been following the example I showed you, but that's just because I've been looking at these things forever, but you can make it look however you want. Yeah, there's no prescribed way of doing it. I think it's whatever is going to make sense for you, is honestly the way to do it. It does not matter what it looks like as long as you understand it. I guess the other thing I should say is, and I'll use this example, this food example. If you're trying to get, let's say, tomatoes from point A to point B, you want to have duplication, right? You don't want to have one tomato farmer, right? You can't create a value chain with one tomato farmer. But the same for these other functions too. Like honestly, you're better off if you have multiple players in these boxes, because if somebody goes out of business, you've got a problem, right? And that becomes a gap. So a lot of times we want some duplication in these boxes. So maybe there's two wholesalers we're working with and two processors we're working with and two I don't know, but we do want, and maybe there's 10 tomato farmers, but I guess my point is it's best not to rely on one key player in anything, right? The same thing with tourism or recreation, right? You don't want to have one outfitter, because inevitably something's going to happen and then you're stuck. Or one hotel, right? Or anyway, so that's just another really important piece of value chain mapping, is making sure that you have duplication in your functions and those partners. So anyway, other questions? I know I've kind of rushed through this, but I'm so glad we got to do this. Kind of fun. So yeah, this mural board is cool. I'm gonna figure out how to use this better, and it's, I want to use this so we can all contribute. I think if you're doing this on your own, doing it in PowerPoint is really good, or like, I don't know, whatever program you use to do, like, organizational charts or whatever kinds of charts you do. You can do it however you want. I've seen people do it on paper, just drawing it out. It does not matter. But the other thing I'll say is, it's kind of like I mentioned, it's not a static thing, right? If I think about measurement, which I've been thinking about a lot, that initial value chain map is sort of your baseline, right? And then over time, it's going to evolve. So it's kind of a living diagram that is going to keep changing as you build things out and fill gaps and all of those things. So yeah, anyway, other questions, concerns, confusion? And I will figure out how we can all play for next week. I think this is the free version. I am gonna get a subscription so we can actually do this for real, and you guys can all create boxes and things like that. And we'll do that next week. And if you wanna, I encourage you to think about your own market and it's okay if you don't have one in mind. I mean, I would just if you just want to play around with something that's been on your mind, or we're just practicing, so having something to practice with is often really helpful. So I would try it, and if not, we'll do it next week. We'll do something like this. We'll see if we can do some more for each of you, and work through a similar kind of process. And yeah. But thanks for playing around. I'm glad we got to do this. It is such I find it, I mean, I think it's fun, and I think people enjoy, like your partners will enjoy seeing something visual, and like seeing how they can be helpful, and, and why and how and all of those things. So yes, anyway, if you want to take a stab at this, I'll send some, I have a couple of tools for thinking about this, so I will send those along to you all. It's more like instructions, like how to start thinking about it, and yeah, so it might be useful. And then, here we are. We're in the home stretch here. So here's where we are. We're mapping value chains. And, honestly, we're going to be doing this, the identifying gaps, bottlenecks, and underutilized assets is still value chain mapping. So we're going to be doing this for a few more weeks yet. So we have plenty of time to like practice and practice again and think more about this. So that's kind of where we are. And as always, these websites are going to be really helpful as you keep thinking about what we're doing. And come to Reno. Reno is, oh no, these dates are wrong. Shoot. Okay, those are not right dates. I need to fix that. The dates are the 19th to the 22nd, I think. I just fixed it. So here we are. Play from current slide. Oh, I don't know if you can see this anymore. Yeah, come to Reno. I am planning a wealth creation session. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I try to make them always as interactive as I can. So we may be doing value chain mapping. We may be doing the game with that I developed a wealth creation game that we play sometimes at conferences with cards and stuff. It's pretty fun. And yeah, anyway, it's just an opportunity to connect, and, also an opportunity if you want to kind of share kind of how you're thinking about wealth creation. It's always good to have sessions where I'm not the only one talking. So that's good too. So if you're coming, let me know, and we'll somehow integrate you into that session. And this is me yet again. You know me, but feel free to reach out anytime if you have questions, or if you want to do some one-on-one value chain mapping or whatever. I am always down for like doing this one-on-one too. So anyway, I am happy to see all of you. And yeah, I don't want to keep you longer than I need to. So yeah, any last thoughts, questions, concerns, anything on your mind that we should talk about? Okay, I know I know that was like a lot, but anyway, it's good. We're going to keep talking about it. I kind of just wanted to kind of introduce it, but we'll be doing this for a few weeks and drilling down into it a lot more. So yeah. Anyway, it's a great tool. And actually, I do want to do it for downtown revitalization. So I may try to do that. That will be my assignment because it's something that I'm working on. So I'm going to try to create a downtown revitalization value chain map that I'll share with you next week. But if you have any time and you want to, I know it's only a week, so I apologize. But if you have, even 15 minutes to create one and share next week, that's cool too. Or we'll do it on Miro and I'll figure out how to use it.
Melissa, if you're going down the downtown revitalization path, you should also check out New York State. If you Google NYS DRI or New York Forward, so New York State actually offers every year $10 million for one community in each of our 10 regions, and then two $4.5 million awards for two smaller communities, but it really is focused on downtown revitalization, really talking about a very specific area of a village, a town, a city, and they have what's called strategic investment plans out there, which is everything that the community is talking about and how they want to make their investments and what they want to invest in and what's important to them. So that might help inform
Cool.
some of the stuff that you do.
That is awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm doing a project in Northern California around downtown revitalization, and I've been thinking about, I mean, yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's fascinating, and I think a value chain lens will be really helpful to encourage them, and I want to provide an example. Like I want them, these communities are very small, they're very low capacity, and I think the starting point, like with most wealth creation, is what do you have and who do you have, right? And so that's kind of where I want to bring my own thinking. So,
Yeah. And some of
yeah.
these real life examples might be able to inform some of the things, and they actually might also be transferable. I mean, I'm sure there is.
Oh, yeah. No, I think so too. Yeah. So that will be my homework, and I will share next week what I've uncovered. And then if you all have anything you want to share, and if not, we'll do it in real time. So anyway, thank you for that, Heather. I appreciate it. Ethan, thank you for the example. I love getting to work on a real thing, and I know it was kind of quick and a bit contrived, but we'll get there. So,
Thank you.
and yeah, if I can, I don't know if you will be able to see that offline, but if not, I'll figure out a way to send it to you.
I took a screenshot of it,
Oh,
so
cool.
yep.
All right. Wonderful. All right. Good to see you all. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. And let me know if you have questions in the meantime. So reach out.
Do you have a
Okay.
second afterwards, Melissa?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stay on. Thank
Yeah.
you.